Joining me now in our Washington studio are Joseph Wambia, who runs an investment firm that focuses on Africa, and Regina Njogu, attorney and analyst. Welcome back to In Focus.
Thank you.
Now, first, Regina, what are you making of the numbers that we're getting so far, the leading candidates?
It's not surprising to me. Unfortunately, I think the tyranny of numbers is coming to pass. And it looks to me as if Kenya has voted largely along tribal lines. That's unfortunate. If you look at Uhuru's performance in Nyanza, he got a lot of 0% in most of those counties. And if you look at Raila's performance in Central Province, Kiambu in particular, he was getting about 6% versus Kenyatta 95+%. Yeah. So we are still voting along tribal lines, and that's something that is quite discouraging.
And Joe, this is very interesting because last time, 2007, Raila Odinga, for example, got a massive vote from the Rift Valley region. Mm-hmm. Now he's getting almost nothing. So what do you say? Do you agree with Regina about the tyranny of numbers?
Yes, I think, when you have the two communities in question having been psyched into almost feeling that this is an Armageddon kind of voting experience for them, do or die, and they're going to turn out 90% and they'll vote for their guy. That pretty much takes care of a lot of what you're seeing right now. Yeah. Now, on the other hand, I think we should be a little cautious before we project too far. We have 50-some% of the votes that have been counted. If you just look at statistics and you do a little bit of modeling, there's a convergence proportionality-wise. And so it is conceivable, unless the gap widens, if it continues to narrow, though there has been some widening this morning, but before it was narrowing. I project a convergence around 7 million, so you could still have a runoff.
You could still have a runoff.
Yes, because it all depends on whose votes have been counted, what proportion at different places, and it's not clear right now. Yeah. If it is random across the board, then statistics, very simple econometric models will show you that there will be a convergence somewhere in the 7 million range.
Now, Regina, the performance of the other candidates has been solid dismal. What does that tell us? Were Kenyans really not paying attention to what they were telling them?
No, it's dismal because the two main candidates went out and vigorously campaigned, and to a lot of people, voting for the other three candidates would amounted to like a waste of their vote. So the thinking is, instead of wasting my vote, I'd rather give this vote to somebody who has a realistic chance of winning, who would be Raila or Uhuru.
Yes. And the other thing, Vincent, is that you have to remember these are coalitions. So if there were individual parties competing, the numbers would be much lower and the distribution would be much wider, but they would still be balkanized ethnically. Musalia Mudavadi is doing better than one would have expected, and of course he's taking that off Raila's hide. Yeah. So if there's a runoff, you're looking at the 200,000 or so that I project he will end up getting. A lot of that
might make a difference. Now, there has been this concern about the spoiled votes or rejected votes, about 284,000 up to this point. What do you make of those?
Well, in an election like this, of this magnitude and complexity, it's not unusual or out of the ordinary. I mean, 6 ballots at a time for the rural folks. It's expected that there were going to be spoiled ballots. I don't think it's a problem as long as they are distributed evenly across the board, as in Uhuru stronghold and Raila stronghold, so they cancel each other. Yeah. So I don't think it works to either party's disadvantage.
Yes, and Joe, in terms of if in the event that there's a runoff, what do you think is going to happen? What kind of readjustments are you likely to witness?
Well, I think if there's a runoff, there are two scenarios. First, you have to look at the percentage of voter turnout and, in the strongholds, particularly for Uhuruto. Okay, I expect that would not increase in the runoff because it's probably at the highest level it is right now, even if you add a little bit. If there's a runoff, those who voted for CORD will realize that, it's not playtime, it's a final end game, and I would expect that probably in a runoff, Cod would win.
Yes.
And especially because the Musalia factor will not be there. Yes.
Very quickly, Regina, are you satisfied with the kind of messages the politicians are giving out at this time, even as they get a little concerned about some perhaps irregularities or things that didn't go right?
No, I'm not entirely satisfied, especially with Quad. They just issued a statement last night, 2 a.m. in the morning, called a press conference, 2 a.m. in the morning Kenyan time. That I would consider inappropriate. And what they called that press conference for was to complain about some of the irregularities and suggest that they were favoring Uhuru. We need to be careful about those type of statements.
Yes. Well, what's your last word?
I would differ respectfully. Politicians will be politicians. I'm sure that if Uhuru was in the opposite, in Cod's position, anybody who is losing will say that. So it has to be taken with a grain of salt. And people shouldn't be too worked up about it because if you're not planning to rig the election, there is no reason why you should be worried if somebody alleges that you may be rigging. It's only a thief who gets worried if somebody says thief, thief. If you're not rigging, nothing will happen.
Right.
And on the other, at the same time, also, I think it's expected. It's to be expected.
Exactly, and so many things. We're still waiting. We'll watch and see what happens after today.
I think people should relax and not be too hyper.
There should be a relaxation from everybody. I want to thank you both, and please stay with us here on In Focus all week for continuing coverage of the Kenya elections.